I'm David, founder of Eagles Way Healing, and recently had the privilege of participating with the Study Society to create this talk that you're about to listen to. Firstly, I'd like to thank Angela. I met Angela at Colet House in London at a Rupert Spira meeting. We became friends, which eventually led to this talk. Also, thank you to Phillip and Thomas and everybody involved with the Study Society at Colet House for making this happen. The recording skips past the introduction and initial meeting and begins with a very brief overview of the cultural landscape of Aboriginal Australia. Then we have a guided meditation experience that will give you the opportunity to connect with your ancestors, followed by audience questions and feedback. Lastly, we have a short overview of Eagles Way Healing, followed by a live healing demonstration. If you'd like to know more or enroll in our free introductory healing course, visit eagleswayhealing.com. Sit back and enjoy.
So, to give you an overview of where I'm coming from a cultural and geographical context, I'm just going to firstly show you a couple of maps. So we have a map of Australia, the landmass in size superimposed over Europe, and it's a little bit distorted because that's a true to size map. So it gives you an idea of the vast size. And the second map, this is the map of First Nations cultural and linguistic areas. And it just shows the diversity. A lot of people have the misconception that Aboriginal Australia is just a one entity, and it's not. There's over 500 different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clan groups or nations with unique beliefs, languages, and cultural traditions. And there were more than 250 languages, including around 800 dialects pre-colonisation. So today we have less than half that number of languages that are still spoken, and 90% of those are considered endangered. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, in 2021, there are only 6 Indigenous languages in locations where more than 1,000 people spoke them. Sorry, getting a bit tongue-tied. So I don't represent all of Aboriginal Australia. I just represent myself and my own story and the wisdom I've received from my elders, my mother and ancestors, and I'm a Bunjalung man, which is the area, very good pointing, on the far east coast, about midway. That's my area. So I feel like I'm a weather presenter here. So I'm going to cover another couple of important factors that have shaped Aboriginal Australia. It's important to note to contextualise where it's coming from. And I'll quickly cover them because it's not, I don't want to bring the mood down or anything, but mass genocide and stolen generation are the two factors that have helped shape where we are today. So just in the Bunjalung area or nation, there was mass genocide with an aim to wipe out the Aboriginal people. And this happened all over Australia. And there were countless massacres just in my area, including shooting hundreds of people in reprisal for stolen sheep, forcing entire clans off cliffs to their deaths, giving poisoned flour as rations, which killed hundreds of people, and so on. And the evidence of Bora rings and sacred sites and sites of significance have been erased. So for those who don't know, a Bora ring is a sacred ceremonial site used for important cultural and spiritual practices. So these rings are typically circular areas, cleared of vegetation, and may be marked out by stones or earth mounds around the circumference, all natural elements that shape them. And the boy ring served as a place for initiation ceremonies, rites of passage, storytelling, gatherings, dance, and so on. And it played a vital role in passing down knowledge and traditions and spiritual teachings from one generation to the next. So they were mostly removed as well. So on top of that was the stolen generation, which refers to a shameful period in Australian history where up until the 1970s, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children were forcibly removed from their families by government agencies and church missions. And the aim was to assimilate these children into a white Australian society and breed them out of existence. So these children were often placed in institutions or fostered by non-Indigenous families, some of which were caring, of course, but many were used as servants or slaves, where they experienced neglect, abuse, and loss of their cultural identity and language. So on top of everything else that's already happened, this caused profound intergenerational trauma with lasting effects on Aboriginal communities and individuals today, including disconnection from family and struggles with identity and loss of cultural knowledge. As tradition, knowledge and wisdom was orally passed down. So this gives you an overview of my lineage and why there's so many massive gaps and a loss of so much wisdom over the last few generations. So when I was gifted this healing modality, Eagles Way healing, that I practice and teach, it was partly from meeting people at perfect times with synchronicity, partly from wisdom shared personally from elders where I could, and partly from connecting with my ancestors and having intentions and heartfelt yearnings for knowledge and wisdom, and then receiving very prescriptive visions of precisely how to do different aspects of the healing, different pieces of the puzzle came together with the help from my ancestors. So having said that, I'd like to take you on a journey of connection and take you through a process where you can connect with your ancestors as well. So traditionally, the Aboriginal people in my area, at least, believe that when you die, you don't go into the sky as stars like many other Indigenous cultures around the world did, but when you pass, you merge with Mother Earth and return to be part of the whole and all that is. So a very non-dual perspective. So in this secondary meditation on connecting with ancestors, if you have a yearning question or a need for guidance or connection in any area of your life, now's the time to ask your ancestors for guidance. And I'll describe the scene, what it may have looked like for my Aboriginal ancestors hundreds of years ago. So I'll invite you to my dreaming, remembering dream time is a dimension that's independent of time and space. So this is the dimension where I do a lot of my work with healing Um, but it's also a dimension where you can connect today to the wisdom and guidance of your ancestors if you can tap into that. And if you don't have anybody, not necessarily specific personalities, but if you don't have ancestors you feel like you would like to connect to, you can connect with the universal wisdom that's out there. You can connect with other cultures that resonate with you, or you're welcome to connect with my ancestors as well. So, if you just like to close your eyes again, and I'll guide you through. In front of you is a boring, a circular clearing with a raised mound surrounding it. At the entrance, there would be a fire lit, maybe a few fires inside as well. On entering, you throw a handful of green gum leaves onto the fire, which produces a thick white smoke. As you enter, you wash yourself with healing smoke to cleanse your energies as you're entering that sacred space. Around you are people deep in contemplation and discussion. Maybe there are people painted with ochre, singing and dancing, using clapsticks for rhythm and stomping their feet on the ground. In the middle of the boring is an upturned tree trunk, deliberately placed so the roots are sticking up in the air. As above, so below. Which means that all that's happening above the ground, activities and dancing and celebration, is being mirrored by the ancestors below. As above, so below. That's how close we are to our ancestors. They are always with us to draw wisdom and guidance when we need it. You can draw on that connection if there is a heartfelt ask and yearning. It's just there. So I invite you to ask what you came here to ask and sit in awareness for a few moments. You may not get an immediate response, but know that your message has been heard and delivered. When you're ready, thank your guides and ancestors for connecting and being there and helping you along your journey. Even though you may not be aware, they've been there supporting you every step. I invite you to come back into the room. Would anybody like to share their experience? Does anybody have any comments or questions at this stage?
Yeah, hello, David. It's Philip. Hi.
Oh, hello,
Um,
Philip.
Hi. I remember you actually from what Angela was talking about when we met you at Colet House. But anyway, when you would
Yes,
take,
I do remember you.
yeah, I remember that. Anyway, um, when you brought up that image of the circle and the lights and going through and the upturned root of a tree,
Mm.
something connected in me. The thing, what was difficult for me was I wasn't really clear when I saw the upturned trunk of the tree and the roots going up. Then I had a kind of feeling that I was connecting with something. The thing is, David, I don't have many ancestors who I feel were very wise.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a
So I don't know
common.
how to get I don't know how to get around that one. But I was going to ask you how when you talk about ancestors, it's a kind of metaphor in a way because how deep, how far and how deep does ancestry go? Does it go right to the beginning of time, or the beginning of
Absolutely.
anyway? That's the question I'm asking.
Yes, yeah, great question. Yeah, thank you. Um, yes, it does go back to the beginning of time. And if you look from a mathematical perspective, if you think from your conscious mind, I dare say that the majority of us have very unremarkable and probably somewhat dull ancestors that we can think of. But from a mathematical point of view, you have two parents. They both have two parents, and it doubles every generation. And within a relatively short period of time, that number just gets an extraordinarily large level. So you're looking at millions of people. So even though you may not be able to pinpoint the exact incarnation or personality of the being you're asking for help, that there is somebody or many people out there specifically looking out for you. And it's hard to imagine, but they're there, absolutely.
Yeah, there is when you say that there is. I get that. I sense the wholeness in the diversity. And when you talk about millions of ancestors and people, then there's a sense that they're all in a kind of wholeness. They're all there, but I can't pick
Mm.
out any particular people. It's a very beautiful image you brought up, and but that image of the circle with the upturned tree root is just so beautiful. I thank you for that one. I'll remember that one. It's with me now. Yeah.
Yes, you're more than welcome. Yeah.
Paul's got his hand up.
All right. Yes, my experience was just sort of imagining what was described for me, but there was one thing that was really interesting of the upturned tree stump, because I seem to remember that a similar thing has been found in an ancient prehistoric site in England.
Fascinating.
Somewhere on the North Sea coast, a sort of wood henge, and in the middle there was this upturned tree stump. So that symbolism seems to be much more universal than most people might think.
How interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Mm,
Ah. Yeah, thank you for letting me know. That's fascinating.
yeah.
It's interesting because you also have the stone, many stone circles all over the UK as well. And there's a similarity with many aspects, I believe, of ancient wisdom.
Do you get stone circles in Australia? Aboriginal
Yes,
stone? Oh, I didn't know. That's interesting.
yes. However,
Yeah.
most have been destroyed. So there's a certain paranoia with farmers that, you know, if it's seen, our land might be, you know, encroached upon or, you know, stolen. And yeah, so they've just removed them and wipe out all evidence. That's
How
very,
far,
very common.
how far back is your Aboriginal ancestry?
As far as ancestry goes,
Yeah.
the way they say it's like coffee.
All right.
No matter how much milk you put in it, it's still a coffee.
Yeah.
So I have stolen generation on both sides of my family tree, quite recently. The genetics, for some reason, if you have an African person and they have a white partner, their children will be still very noticeably African in appearance. In Aboriginal genetics, it dilutes very, very fast. So my mother looks very Aboriginal features when she was a young girl, and now that she's older, she looks, you can tell quite easily. But for myself, I'm very, very milky.
Yes, I
So-
wouldn't have spotted anything Aboriginal
No.
looking at you. Yeah.
No, it's a fair comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It dilutes very, very quickly, and that's why they had the White Australia policy, where they tried to breed out all
Wow.
evidence of us existing, which was quite successful.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's
Jennifer Dodson.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I'm coming from Victoria. I'm just showing you a picture here, and you can actually see in this picture, it's a bit small, but this picture actually has a stone circle, and this is actually in a cave at the back of Delphi in Greece, and this is actually the cave of the Muses, and you can quite clearly see the energy in this picture.
Yes, yes.
So they actually occur all over the world. And yeah, anyway, that's all I wanted to show you, is that they are around, and they're around a lot. So
yeah, thank you for sharing. That's great. Yeah, the caves were generally feminine places with sacred places for women, whereas you know, mountaintops were generally men's sacred sites. And they had, as far as the boy rings go, generally they had a larger one, which was a community ring where people got together and danced and exchanged wisdom and knowledge. And then they had paths going out, and it was like going back into the womb. You'd go along the path into a little sacred, smaller boy ring, and there'd be two separate ones, one for men, one for women. And then you would go there and talk about women's business or men's business, and any initiations and special wisdom for you was passed down in those smaller rings as well.
there's actually meant to be some standing stones, so for all the people in England, so similar to Stonehenge.
Yes.
In Victoria. Yeah,
yes.
but I haven't been able to locate them at this point. But
That's fascinating, because there's also one at Mullumbimby in my area, standing stone. They call it a Stonehenge as well, but that was destroyed as well.
yeah, I think the difference is the standing stones in Australia are actually not, like, they're not great monoliths. They're only they're quite subtle, but the energy's subtle, so that doesn't surprise me.
Well, thank you for for joining. And from Australia, it's a pleasant surprise that somebody else is up nice and early. Yeah, thank you.
There's actually 2 of us from Ballarat in the audience.
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous.
And actually,
Welcome.
we both met Angela at Rupert Spira talk, and actually Angela was talking to me about her dream with the Aboriginal, and I said to her that no, it was definitely what she was seeing was what she was saying.
Mm,
Do you remember Angela?
I do, definitely. And you wrote to me, didn't you, Jennifer?
No, that was Teresa that wrote to you, the other lady up the top here.
All right. It was wonderful, a wonderful meeting. We had
Right.
Rupert again on Saturday, so I remembered you all. Anyway, Teresa, would you like to say something, please?
Yes, thank you. So it's 20 to 7 in Victoria. On Tuesday morning.
Oh, you're a little bit ahead.
Yes. There's actually a stone circle about half an hour west of Ballarat, where Jenny and I live, at a place called Lake Bolac. Regrettably, very recently, some of the stones have been moved, but it's a very lovely spot. And there's also there's the World Heritage Site for fish traps not far beyond that.
Yes.
So I feel there's a lot of common ground.
Yeah, thank you. So, if I may, I'll briefly talk about the healing modality that I do and how it works. So, Eckhart Tolle often refers to the pain body, which I'm sure that you've heard before. And it points towards the energetic field, the auric field, where negative energies and emotions exist and influence our current reality. So Eagle's Way Healing does a lot of work in this space and clears away the pain body out, so there's no energetic mass to connect to anymore, with miraculous results. So for simple example, I had a client with anger issues who would swear and curse at the most minor things, and that was just her normal state of being. So once the energetic mass that was supporting it was identified and cleared, there was no spontaneous emotional eruptions anymore. And she was quite surprised that things that used to trigger her no longer triggered. In the realm of physical healing, I've had countless healings where after one brief session, and grace, as I take no personal credit for healing, 90% of the recipient's symptoms have gone, or the condition has completely vanished. And that's happened countless times just by removing that energetic mass that was supporting it. Mental health is another area. Again, removing pain, often from past traumatic events or ancestral energies, intergenerational trauma, and so on. And the cloud of depression and confusion can be dissolved and replaced with clarity, presence, and space, just by removing that energetic load. Relationship healing and attracting people, situations, and events that are in alignment with your highest good. So many times I've worked with people in endless cycles of toxic romantic relationships, and by removing that energetic root cause and removing any blocks to their perfect relationship, within months they found somebody madly in love with, you know, Mr. or Mrs. Right. And it's just as simple as just getting rid of that, changing the energetic inertia that's that's sweeping them through life. And last and most importantly, which is what I'm most passionate about, I think it's the ultimate focus of healing, is it's the pinnacle of our purpose of being here, is spiritual healing, which is clearing any blocks that prevent you from being aware of your true nature and experiencing oneness and living your happiest, most joyous life. I think that's the ultimate. So, having said that, the easiest way or the best way is demonstrating. So, is there anybody who'd like to volunteer for a very brief healing session just to demonstrate how it works? As long as you're okay being recorded and in front of everybody. Esther. Yeah. Could somebody please bring up Esther's?
Do you want to unmute Esther?
Yes, please. That would be great. He seems to want to talk.
Hello? Hello?
Hello. Ah, great. You're a brave volunteer.
Yeah. I'm Pete.
Hi, Pete.
Hi. Hi.
I didn't think you were Esther. I was admiring your beautiful cat there before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So did you have an intention of something that we could look at?
Yeah, I this is very topical for me because I'm an artist now, and I've been working on an exhibition of pictures that I made when I was undergoing some recuperation from a long illness. This was a heart-connected illness, and so I was in quarantine and really at home and in the garden, and I just spontaneously started to draw pictures of the garden, and then the pictures got more surreal, you know, and my imagination started to roll on it, and basically it put me in connection with a lot of pain, really, from my family in the past. Half my family are Irish, and the Irish half have been touched by heart problems over generations.
Yes,
and a lot of this pain came up around having lost contact with that part of my family and lost contact with it all. And partly, I've got to say, there was an element of consciousness about that because it was all too painful. You know, my grandfather died of a heart condition when he was 52. My mother was 52. Her brothers were younger than they should have been, really. All with the same issue. And so I found that in making drawings in the garden, it's almost as if I've been led to this place where I'm looking at stuff that needed to be looked at and honored in some way. And the way it's expressing itself with me is trying to connect up the heart to the will. You know, I feel that now, and it's such a different vision of, you know, you could look at the science of having a congested heart, but I'm beginning to see it in other terms. But I don't have any expertise in that. It's just something that I'm groping my way through, you know. So right now I'm taking all sorts of medicines, and that helps a lot with angina, and everything that goes with it, you know. So I'm not. I've felt a lightening since I've begun to get in touch with this. But I suppose it's really anything that I'm looking for, anything that would help support my journey in this way, because I don't have
Yes.
techniques.
Yes, yes, sure. So just clarifying, so your intention is for physical alleviation and emotional alleviation of what's happening around that, or I'm just trying to condense intention.
I suppose, yeah, I feel I want to make peace with my ancestors on this, because my response to it all has been to block them out, you know.
Yes, I understand.
Not to have them.
It's interesting because there's certain groups that come up with the number of people I work with, and one of them that's a standout is people with Irish descent. There's a lot of pain and suffering there as well.
Yeah.
And it comes out as well. So, okay, so I'll just have a look. What I'll do is I'll look into that, and I'll define what's there and clear it out of your energetic field.
Thank you.
So just for a point of reference for people around us now, if you consciously reflect back to your ancestors now, just thinking of it, what's the feeling? Is there resistance, or is there hostility, or what's the block there?
I think there's a fear that doesn't feel as if it's mine.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's a fear around, and a kind of agitation.
Yes,
that comes up.
Yeah, that's great. It doesn't really matter about that. I'm just doing it as a point of reference, so you can you can go back and revisit that.
Yeah.
So just bear with me. I'll just quickly look into your energetic field and see what we can find. We have sorrow, we have lack of joy, frustration, superstitious, humble. This is all ancestral stuff. So we don't need to define it as specifically as if it was your own energies. A lack of self-respect, confusion, disconnected, embarrassment.
Yeah.
That's specifically to do with poverty. Careless. Hostility. That's projected outwards. And that's predominantly come from your mother's side?
Yeah.
That actually goes back to her mother, and it follows a matriarchal line. The flavor of that specific energy. Okay, so that's defined sufficiently. Let's clear it. So I'll ask you to put your hand on your forehead. Okay, we'll just clear out that energy. Great. Well done. Just have a sip of water if you have any. And that cleared that through your ancestors as well.
Wow. It really felt that that was somebody else's hand on my head.
So reflecting back when you first thought about the initial question about thinking of your ancestors, when you do that again, what's there now, if anything?
There's a much greater calmness and a sense of clarity. Yeah. It's certainly different. There's certainly a shift.
Yes.
That's happened there.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It creates space. It creates space so your consciousness can spread out and you can connect.
Yeah.
And your ancestors would be very grateful as well, because that energetic signature that was cleared from you was also cleared back. So it's gone through the whole thing.
Wow. It's making me think of something I was reading the other day about time. You know, time being time to give attention to something, whatever the block to unity is, and the use of time being that, you know, to actually set intention and to give space to addressing that. And I think with the sort of confusion and the fear, all of that gets in the way. It just stops. It stops the process. I was going to ask you, you know, whether in the First Nation people, whether there is a belief that we're all moving to unity anyway, you know, as the direction of life is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As I described, with being one with nature, one with the earth, one with the land.
Yeah.
That's that's a fundamental belief that we're all one.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, David. I just want to say, Philip, again, we have to close up soon because we've got people going to other events. But I just want to say this: it's been absolutely fascinating. The way that there's this power of presence when one is present, and when one is present, there's least resistance, and from that least resistance, one moves into much more bigger, open, connected spaces. I thought that was really beautiful the way you did that, and thank you so much for being with us. I hope one day you can come back to us and do a proper workshop at Colet House. That would be really lovely. You know,
Yeah,
if
that
you're
would be
ever,
delightful.
if you're ever back in the UK, please come and we'll organize a workshop for you. That would be really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And thank you to Teresa and Jennifer for joining as well at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, yes,
Mm.
indeed. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Friends.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you, Angela, for introducing us to David. It's been very beautiful. Thank you all for coming. And thank you,
Cool.
David, especially.
And could I just say one last thing before people depart? I've popped up on my screen my Facebook link and website link, and because it's my life's purpose from me, because this is so important to relieve the collective pain body of the world. So I'd like to offer that. So thank you everybody for listening and being here.
Thank you. Thank you, David. And bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. eagleswayhealing.com.